First thing I'd like to do is recognize Governor Jim Hunt and thank him for his continued leadership, which continues to amaze me and lift our spirits around education in the state of North Carolina. Please join me in thanking him. I want to thank our teachers as well, without whom learning wouldn't occur, and for the leaders in those schoolhouses who create the sort of culture that inspires people to dig deep and do their best on behalf of our state students. So thank you, teachers and leaders. And I want to thank you for your shared commitment to ensuring that we have great teachers in every classroom in the state of North Carolina. Pasi, a Finnish educator and scholar, Dr. Pasi Sahlberg has worked as a school teacher, a teacher educator and policy advisor in Finland, and has studied education systems and education reform across the globe, specializing in international educational change. The future of schooling and innovations in teaching and learning. He is the former Director General in Finland's Ministry of Education, responsible for international mobility and cooperation, sharing Finnish lessons worldwide, all the while responding to constant inquiry on Finland's many educational successes, most evident in their leading PISA scores. Presently, Harvard is fortunate to have him as a visiting professor of practice in their Graduate School of Education. Plus, he's a good guy and someone I am delighted to call friend. And if you like what you hear today, and I'm convinced you will, read his book, Finnish Lessons. Pasi, welcome back to North Carolina. We are delighted you're here. And building on what Amanda shared with us about international comparisons, it's very clear that Finland invests heavily in the education of its children. Let's start with your family. In addition to being accompanied by his lovely wife, Petra, you have your 2-year-old son, Otto, with us today. Please provide us an overview of the early childhood education afforded Otto back home. I consider this commitment early to your children as a hallmark anchoring your overall success.
Okay, thank you. First of all, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. This is it's my third visit to this great state, and it's always nice to be here. Let me see if I can get the... do we see the picture here? Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about answer your question about the, no, it's not. Sorry about this. Oh, this is my son. Okay. And probably now you understand why I wanted to show this. He's here with me, and you know, when the baby is born in Finland, one of the parents, normally mother, but it can be father too, can stay with the child for the first year, and he or she will be fully paid. So they can leave their jobs and spend the time with the child. And then it's a parent's choice. The following 2 years, until the child is 3, one of the parents can stay home with the child, but not be fully paid. But you will be given a leave of absence from your work. Okay? Very many parents do that. We are doing that right now. So Otto is 2 years old, and he's still with us because we think that it's a good place for a small child to be at home. And then when he turns 3, this child, not the parents, but this child has a right to high-quality daycare. Okay, so it's a children's right in Finland to have access to daycare or kindergarten all the way until they are 7 when the school begins. Okay, and we have about 75 or 80% of our kids are in a daily kindergarten or daycare every day of the week. We have some of the daycare centers in Helsinki, for example, are operating 24 hours. Meaning that if the mother is, you may be a single parent and you work in a night shift, that you can have your child in a daycare. And why do we think in Finland that this is important? We think so because in this country I know that many children, when they start schooling at the age of 6, the gap between those who have had access to daycare like Otto and those who haven't is so huge that no schooling can close this gap anymore, right? And that's why what we do in Finland and other successful education systems and Nordic countries is to try to make sure that every child has access to high-quality daycare so that the gap between those who can and those who can do so well when they start schooling is smaller.
Thank you. Children ready to learn by the time they enter school. What would you say sets Finland apart from the rest of the world when it comes to its education system? Was it established as an investment in human capital, or were there other goals?
Okay, this is one of the questions that people often ask, whether I travel outside of Finland or when I'm fortunate to host delegations from other countries, what are the differences? And you heard a little bit about that from Amanda already. But let me speak to you a little bit about this, because particularly in this country, when I come to the United States, and now I'm fortunate to work and live here, I see a lot of people talking about only the so-called quality or excellence of education that you will see in this graph as this vertical line. So this means that when we speak about education systems, we speak about the PISA scores or test results, and we compare the rank of the United States to other countries and so on. But there's much more behind the high performance or success at the level of the education system, and this is where the differences come more interesting. So first of all, we obviously need to look at things like how much money we are spending on education. We have to ask how many people go into the system of education and how many people come out of the system. We have to ask questions, how many kids go to daycare or kindergarten or preschool, and how many adults are learning, if we really want to compare the performance of the entire systems. But there are two particular aspects in a school system, K-12, that is the focus of this conference, that I think are necessary to mention here. The one is the quality, of course, that you see here in the vertical line. We are looking at how much kids learn math and reading and science. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about any other subjects. But then there's the other one, and this is what people call, and I call, equity in education. Equity means here that how much the background of children determines their success in schools. Every country in the world, in Finland, here, Korea, Poland, every country has the same thing, that if you come from the more disadvantaged family background, your chances to be successful in education are less than those who are more fortunate, okay? But there are systems are performing very differently in this way. And this is where the Finland versus the many other countries come into the play. What you see here in this image is the white dot is representing the average of quality and the equity in the system, okay? So now we are looking at two different parameters of variables of systems performance, not only the PISA scores or test scores, okay? And this is where the United States is. And many people here, I know, are surprised to find the United States so close to the international average in both of these quality and equity measures. I would say that this is a fairly good performance. It's much better than having a system where there's less equity, and poor quality, okay? And I'm going to show you how all the other OECD countries perform in terms of how equitable their school systems are. In other words, how they are helping every child, every student to be successful, and how good or bad their international performance combined in math and reading and science in these international studies are. And you will see something interesting here. First of all, there are some countries there that seems to have high equity in the system level and high quality student outcomes. And Finland is one of those countries. But I'm going to show you, get a little bit back to what Amanda was saying. The countries that you see there in the blue box at the moment are South Korea, Japan, Canada, and Estonia. Okay? So there are 4 countries there that stand alone from all the other OECD countries by being both equitable and high quality, okay? Now, if you take a look at this map, this chart, you're going to see Finland appearing there. And this is where Finland was in the 1970s, and Amanda was speaking about that Finland has not always been a country that everybody is looking at. 40 years ago, we were there. We had issues with quality, and we had a huge issue with equity as well, because of the nature of the education system. And if you look at this little flag, it's the most beautiful flag in the world, by the way. Don't you think? Okay, so I'm going to show you what has happened during the last 40 years. Okay, so this is where we started, and we traveled the first 2 decades investing in equity in the system, and all of a sudden we found ourselves where nobody was expecting us to be. among the successful or high-performing school systems. And this is what distinguishes Finland, Canada, Korea, Estonia, and Japan from all the others, that we have systematically built our systems so that we want equity to be there together with the quality. Okay? And equity doesn't come just by chance. What Finland did was, first of all, we created the comprehensive early childhood preschool system for everybody, every child. We changed our school funding system so that schools are funded based on the needs, unlike most of the schools in the United States are not funded based on the needs, they're funded based on where they happen to be located. We created the special education system that provided early on support for those who need more assistance and help. We introduced school meals and healthcare system within each and every school. And we started to focus on whole child rather than just math and reading and science that many other countries do. And this is the equity program, not only in Finland, but in many other high-performing systems that really distinguishes these systems from many others, okay? And that's, if there's any secret or any mystery of Finland and the other countries, this is it.
What a wonderful holistic approach to children. Amanda talked a little bit about this, but in the late 70s, Finland closed their teacher training colleges, reopening them in the top 8 academic research universities across the country. With an internationally regarded teacher prep program today in Finland, what makes your teacher education unique? And how does this tie to attracting really the best and brightest as they graduate from high school into the education profession?
Okay, it's a great question. Many people, when they leave Finland, and I ask them, what is your takeaway? What do you bring home with you? Many of them, they say that I want to speak about how teachers are valued, respected, and how they are trained and supported when they work. But there is a kind of a danger of concluding that teachers would be everything. And I would actually argue that the teacher education itself in Finland is just a minor part of the story to make Finland's school system perform well. And let me try to explain you this a little bit more. Now, often when people speak about teacher quality, and this conference is focusing on teacher effectiveness and teacher quality, asking how do we train and how do we get the best people into teaching. This is just one dimension of the whole teacher quality discourse. And in Finland, of course, I try to illustrate this in a kind of a concrete example, how the Finnish way of thinking about preparing teachers and treating teachers may be or may not be different from many others. The human capital dimension is something that we most often discuss when we speak about teachers and how good or how bad they are. In other words, the issue is that how do we train them? How do we support? How do we find the most able and capable people into teaching? Okay, but this is just one aspect. If this was the whole story, this would be a very easy thing to work out. But there's another one, and the other dimension is social capital. So this refers to how much teachers can do more, how much value they can draw from the networks, from the professional communities and their colleagues and people who are doing the same job directly to their own work. Okay? So social capital often means that more we are linked to other people, more we communicate and collaborate, the better we can do. Not only in teaching, but this is the same in sports and many other things. Okay? And this is the second dimension, how we think about teacher quality and teachers' work in Finland. And then the third one is what Hargreaves and Fullan call decisional capital. This refers to the fact that the more people can be involved and engaged in decision-making regarding their own work, the better they will do everywhere. And this is the same in teaching, meaning that more teachers have access to deciding what to teach, how more teachers can set the standards for their own work. The more teachers can influence how to teach, and even the more teachers can decide whether students are successful, whether they're learning in their schools, the higher the decisional capital is. And now my argument here is that rather than looking just one dimension of teacher quality, in other words, teacher education and professional development, we have to look at all of these three. Okay? And a good question now is that how is Finland doing with these three dimensions of teacher professional capital or teacher quality? Well, my estimate is that we have fairly highly trained teachers. You will see this yellow dot representing the kind of amount of human capital at the moment in the Finnish system. All the teachers in Finland have academic master's degree. Everybody has to have that. Even the daycare, the early childhood teachers must have an academic university degree to work. So that's why I'm saying that there's a fairly large amount of human capital, in other words, knowledge and skills, how to do this work. And it's essential in Finland. You cannot teach in any school without having a master's degree or university degree in a daycare center. Then we have, so this is more about training and professional development. But equally important is the social capital, and this is much more about leadership. And my estimate is that in Finland we have a fairly high amount of social capital in the school system because it's about leadership, but it's also about the policies of education that make collaboration and cooperation, sharing ideas possible. And that's why my task in the Ministry of Education when I was working there was to make sure that we don't put forward any education policies that would prevent collaboration and would enhance and promote competition. Like in many countries now, teachers are more competing against one another than they are collaborating. So more teacher feels that I'm competing against my colleagues, less social capital there will be, okay? And so that's a very simple thing. And then the last one, my estimate is that Finland also has fairly large amount of decisional capital because teachers can set their own curriculum. Every school in Finland creates their own curriculum. They can set their own standards, and they also evaluate and assess their students' learning. We don't have any standardized testing or external assessments to judge how well individual students are learning. We have a lot of assessments based on sampling how the school system is working. So that's why my argument here is that don't think about Finnish teachers as something special because they have high quality academic training. Think about Finnish teachers as somebody who has a huge amount of professional capital because of good training, professional development, but also because of they are able to work together. They are teaching much less than teachers here in the United States so that they can collaborate more, and that they have a lot of decisional capital because of the access to the decision making regarding their own work. This all requires, of course, that we trust teachers and we respect them just like we respect our lawyers and doctors and anybody else.
Anybody ready to move to Finland? Once a national leader in K-12, North Carolina finds itself today challenged to regain the lead in educating its students. With your recent slip in ranks in the 2012 PISA scores, Finland too is feeling a bit the impact of competition. How do you feel Finland will respond to this recent drop in international rankings? And finally, what advice might you have for North Carolina?
Well, a couple of comments here. First of all, I think we need to be very mindful and careful with these international studies like PISA. The OECD PISA is a useful thing, but it only tells us part of the story. And we also need to understand how the OECD PISA or any international metric is designed. It's designed in a way that if other guys are doing better than you, even if you do the same way as before, you will do worse relatively in this comparison. So part of this Finland's decline and part of the fact that the United States is not progressing too much is because of the Asian countries are doing so much better than we. And they are doing so much better than we because they have every child, or practically every child is having a private tutor. Okay, we don't. In the United States, you don't do it and we don't do it that well. So, one way to explain this is that this name of the game of these international studies is a little bit tricky and we need to be careful. Of course, declining, you're losing your position is never a nice thing to do. I think, however, what Finland will not do in this situation is to start to look at the models of the Asian countries. I'm sure that we are not going to increase any testing or competition in the system. I think Finland will continue to focus on equity. We will continue to enhance and improve our teaching, help our teachers to do better, make sure that they have time and place to work in an increasingly complex and complicated society that we have. We have more and more immigrants coming to the school system all the time, so we need to be careful to understand why things are not working that well. So it's not a good situation, but we try to remain immune to these global educational reform ideas that are insisting more and more time on testing and external standards and kind of a control that we are not very fond of in Finland. I must say that Finland is one of the countries where we are not really too much concerned about our international position. Sometimes we say that we don't want to be better than anybody else in education, except maybe Sweden. And it's true, by the way. But your question, this is what people often ask about what can you learn from Finland. And my way of answering this is a little bit like what Amanda was speaking, that we should not only look at one country now. I think Finland can serve as an inspiration for many who look for, how teachers' working conditions could be renewed and made better and all sorts of things. But now we are living in a situation where we can draw evidence from a number of high-performing countries, and you saw in my graph already 4 or 5 of those that can share and provide very interesting lessons for all of us if we just want to learn. And I must say that one very promising and positive side here in the United States is that everywhere in this country people are now open and willing to look and listen to what people outside of the United States have to share. Okay, and that's I think it's a good thing because there are so many things we can learn. I would say 3 things, and I try to be kind of humble and also accept that there are many things that I don't understand, particularly happening in this state that I don't know so well. But I would say 3 things, 3 lessons from these high-performing education systems that might be worth of a note or consideration. First, I think what is important to note from this successful education system is that none of these high-performing systems, Finland or anybody else, have been able to get there by driving the education policies and reforms through competition and school choice. So that it hasn't worked anyway. And that's why I think anybody who believes that the school system, performance of the entire system can be informed by introducing alternative schooling or reducing the kind of a role of public education should probably look twice what the international evidence is saying. The second one is that none of these high-performing systems, Finland included, is not really relying on a kind of a hard test-based accountability system that holds schools and teachers increasingly accountable for the students' learning, employing standardized assessments. I think what the lessons from the successful education systems would be instead is that we need less testing, but we need smarter tests. I'm not saying that there should be no standardized testing at all, but many of the standardized assessments and tests employed in this country right now are fairly low quality, and they are certainly not in alignment with the complex 21st century skills that many of the employers and many of the higher education institutions are asking for. Most of those standard assessments that I know that I've seen are testing the knowledge of the last century. So that's why testing less, but employing better assessments would be something that, for example, would make the Common Core project more likely to be successful. Then the third one, and this is maybe relevant for the conference overall, is that all of these successful education systems have been strengthening the role of the public education, the public schools, rather than reducing the role of them. And that's why it's very difficult to find international evidence that would say that by introducing alternative ways of schooling and turning public schools into something else would have led to system-wide success. I think what we need to focus on also is to trust our teachers, trust our leaders, and frankly speaking, let our teachers focus on teaching and nothing else. So my final comment, John, here is that if you draw the evidence through OECD and through these assessments, I think what we all should probably be doing right now is to really care more about the question whether our schools and education systems are preparing kids to be innovation ready, as Tony Wagner is calling it, having innovation ready young people to work in an economy and live in a world that is so different that we used to have, and care much less about the test scores in these traditional, conventional academic tests. And if we take this innovation-ready call more seriously, then many of these things that we have been talking about here will look in our schools very different.
Pasi is a gift to us. He's a gift to Finland, and I think he's a gift to the world. So before we entertain Q&A, and you better direct him to Pasi so you don't waste your good time today, let's have one round of applause to thank him for being with us.
So I'm happy to announce that no tackling is necessary. Our technology is back up and running. Let me ask you, before you begin to send in your questions, to just give a round of applause to the people you can't see, but we're getting stressed out by my fingers going, what is going on? What is going on? Because they did a fabulous job getting us up and running. It's always the people behind the scenes who make it work. So, Pasi, the first question I got in was, are you serious? There are no other countries that Finland is looking to for inspiration and learning?
That's
the question. The question was, are you serious? Are there no other countries that Finland looks to for inspiration as it develops its education system?
No, I didn't say that. You know, make no mistake that if, and when people ask us, what is behind of Finland's very rapid turnaround and development of education system, particularly classroom practices and school practices since the 1970s. Remember this path that started in 1972? The answer is simple. American ideas and innovation in education. Finnish school system has been mostly inspired by educational ideas and educators in this country, okay? We have had influences, of course, from Europe, and we have always continued to learn from other countries. And now when I'm here, what I tell my colleagues in Finland, in the politics and administration and the schools, is that the United States continues to be the place where the most interesting and inspiring ideas regarding school education exist. Okay? Many people outside of the United States have learned the kind of that this country has a very bad reputation of school education and very high reputation in higher education. And I always try to correct these people that that's not true. The system here is not broken, and we have to continue learning from the great schools in this country. Okay, so that's why we are learning from you. Thank you very much, and we are learning also from many other countries. So it's not. It's been a little bit more difficult when when you sit on the top of the world. It's a little bit like Nokia company. What happened to Nokia was that they had the same destiny that Finland, that they were on the top of the world too long, and too many people were learning from them. And they were learning from, not intensively from others. But yes, we are learning from others, and maybe this slight decline that we have now will make us even more frequent visitors to not only this state, and North Carolina has a very high reputation in Finland because of the North Carolina way that was very well known in Finland. I came here first time in 1997 when many people in Finland were speaking about North Carolina as a kind of an education island in the United States. So I was lucky to be given to choose 3 locations in the United States in 1997 to visit that would be the most interesting in terms of learning about education. North Carolina was one. I went to Kentucky because of the Education Reform Act there, and then I went to Berkeley, California, of course. But make no mistake, this place has a good reputation, and I wish that this continues to be a place for inspiring educators throughout the world.